Good evening, everyone. My name is Victoria Ortiz, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, or TRPA. And tonight we are going to be reviewing environmental improvement program projects that have been happening on the South Shore. Hopefully you're in the right place. To give you a little bit of just general housekeeping, as a reminder, everyone is muted. We ask that you please use the question and answer box to submit any questions. I see one just popped up. Great. You're getting to see how it works. And questions may be summarized. So on the back end, we have several panelists here who will be responding to those questions as they come in, and we'll also do some of them live. And this recording and the slides will be shared afterwards. So don't worry about frantically writing down any links, although we will also provide those in the chat. So next slide, please. We've got a full lineup for you tonight, and we're going to be covering a lot of different EIP projects. So EIP stands for Environmental Improvement Program. And after each of the focus areas, there's 4 focus areas, we'll have about 5 minutes to publicly answer some of the questions that come through on the Q&A, and then we'll move on to the next focus area. If we can't get to all of the questions, we will have some more Q&A at the end of the presentation. So that said, we do have a lot of information in store for you tonight, as you can see all these different topics. So we will get going. But I do want to start with a poll, which I am going to start right now, just to see how you heard about this webinar. So if you wouldn't mind just answering that question, this will help us in the future to make sure that we're getting the word out and getting it so that people who are curious about what's happening in their neighborhood can get that information. So we'll just give it another 10 seconds or so. Again, we're looking for, did you hear about it in e-news or local newspaper, social media, things like that. And I will stop that right now and share the results with you all. So it looks like most people heard about this through e-news and some through social media. So again, thank you. We really appreciate you spending an hour of your evening with us. And we'll be sure to make sure that those e-news and email invites go out for future webinars. Next slide, please, Jeff. So a little bit of background on the EIP. All of us are here because we live, we work, and we play on Lake Tahoe, which is America's second deepest lake. And when a lot of people come to Tahoe, they may see what looks like a beautiful, pristine lake, but Tahoe has actually faced many environmental threats over the years. We contended with historic logging, development, and grazing, which all caused Tahoe's famous clarity to plummet over the years. And fortunately, in the late 1990s, leaders rallied to form the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program. And this is led by the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency in partnership with more than 80 organizations. And the EIP was launched at the first Tahoe Summit with then President Bill Clinton and Vice President Al Gore. And this partnership works to achieve the environmental goals of the region. Next slide. So we have the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, local, state, and federal government agencies, private entities, and scientists, all having collaborated for more than 25 years to restore the environmental health of Lake Tahoe. And you'll see in the bottom right, private entities are listed there, but I also want to point out that you as the public are a huge part of the success of the EIP. And that's by doing things like implementing your best management practices or BMPs to reduce erosion, making sure that your property has defensible space, even simple actions like picking up your dog poop and your trash and participating in citizen science opportunities all directly contribute to the health of Lake Tahoe. Next slide. And as I mentioned, this landscape scale collaboration is considered the blueprint for Tahoe's climate resiliency and falls into 4 different categories. So tonight, we're going to walk you through key projects that are happening on the South Shore in each of these categories. Next slide. And amazingly, in the last 27 years, partners have completed over 800 projects totaling over $2.8 billion that fall into those categories that I mentioned. This funding is shared by all of the partners that I also showed, And you can see here a general breakdown of how we all contribute to bringing these projects to fruition. Next slide, please. And we know that in Tahoe, our environment and our economy are inextricably linked. So in 2020, we conducted an economic analysis that quantified some of the economic impacts of the EIP. So as you can see, the direct investments have resulted in nearly double the economic output to the region, and the EIP supports 1,700 jobs annually. Next slide. We are committed to being as transparent as possible, so that's why we've pulled together an interactive website. It's eip.laketahoeinfo.org, and that shows real-time data about all EIP projects and expenditures. So for all of the projects that you'll be hearing about tonight, if you want to learn more about them, you can go to the eip.laketahoeinfo.org website. Next slide. As I mentioned, we've got a lot to cover tonight, so we are going to dive in and start with the Watersheds and Water Quality Program, which focuses on improving Lake Tahoe's world-famous clarity. This includes aquatic invasive species prevention and removal and restoration projects like the Taylor Tallac Project. So with that, we are going to hand it to Sarah Muskoff with the United States Forest Service to talk more about this restoration project. We'll have Sarah Muskoff speak, and then Sarah Matthews speak to New Zealand mudsnails, and then we'll have some time for questions on both of those projects. Take it away, Sarah.
Thanks so much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining and taking some time out of your evening tonight. My name is Sarah Muskoff. I'm the Forest Aquatic Biologist at the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit and the Forest Service Project Lead for the Taylor Tallac Restoration Project. Next slide. So the Taylor and Tallac Creek Restoration Project is an integrated restoration project that was planned in partnership between the Forest Service, Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board, and Tahoe Regional Planning Agency with a completed document in 2016. The purpose of this project was to restore and enhance ecological processes and function while also maintaining and enhancing infrastructure and recreational experiences. It's a pretty large project area. You can see here on the map on the right, it's a 2,600 acre project area that includes 11 miles of perennial stream and 470 acres of stream environment zone. And this large footprint is mostly due to the extent of occupied or potentially occupied habitat by various species of aquatic invasive species. Next slide. But the real focus area of a lot of the restoration actions is actually north of State Route 89 in the Baldwin Beach, Kiva Beach area adjacent to the outlets of both Taylor and Tallac Creek. And this integrated restoration project includes treating and removing aquatic invasive species, enhancing stream and restoring stream, swale, wetland, and lagoon habitat in these areas, enhancing recreational facilities and infrastructure, improving some visual characteristics, and improving public access to the sites. Next slide. But phase one of this project, per the NEPA decision, was to kind of get a handle on the existing infestation of aquatic invasive plants in the area. So in 2020, we partnered with TRPA and began planning and permitting for the project and initiated implementation in 2022. Aquatic invasive plants occur in both creeks, Taylor and Tallac, as well as within the wetland habitats there. This is the first treatment to date that we've done in a natural functioning wetland habitat, and the largest aquatic invasive plant removal project we've done in the basin to date. So it has been extremely complicated and challenging, but I think the urgent need to treat this area and the expected benefits that we're going to see upon completion are well worth the effort and the gray hair that you can't really see right now. But I think we're going to get a lot of great benefits. Next slide. So Taylor Creek, you can see here on the left, is a little over a 16-acre infestation. It's considered a source population in that it's putting fragments out into Lake Tahoe, which could cause other infestations, but it was also growing substantially within the wetland and grew by almost 4 acres in one season. And Tallac Creek, you can see here on the right, it's a little over 1 acre of infestation. And treatment, the initiation of treatment was completed in both these areas this season, finished up in August. Next slide. The methods that we're using are manual only. So we're installing benthic bottom barriers that you can kind of see on the top of the slides here, secured to this stream or wetland bottom, and also using diver assisted suction removal where barriers aren't really feasible or conducive. In this area, it's mostly at the mouths of the creeks because they're very dynamic and move around a lot. So that would be an area that we wouldn't put benthic barriers. Next slide. Basically, benthic bottom barriers are large black tarps that you can see here on the left. They block out sunlight, killing the plant and the roots. Below, they're secured with rebar staples or other natural material found on site, such as large rocks. The barriers in the project area are going to be in place for 3 years. So they're going to be in until 2027. Next slide. The target species that we're addressing in the project area is Eurasian water milfoil, which you can see here at the top left. When this plant becomes established, it significantly and negatively impacts both water quality by increasing nutrients in the water, decreasing dissolved oxygen, increasing water temperatures. It increases habitat for other non-desirable invasive species, such as the crayfish that you're seeing at the top of your screen, but also species such as bullfrogs or other warm water fish. Next slide. And I kind of mentioned earlier the complexity and challenges of this project, but I think that really highlights also the importance of this project. This dynamic and really rare habitat is extremely important and vital to the majority of native aquatic and riparian dependent species we have here in the Lake Tahoe Basin. These wetland habitats are also have huge benefits for water filtering and protecting Lake Tahoe water quality. But also it's a really valued area for users and recreationers, from beachgoers to bird watchers. And I mention that because for this project to be really successful, these outreach events and education and public support are really crucial for the success of AIS prevention throughout the basin. And with that, I will hand it over to the next Sarah. Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks, Sarah. So in September, a new aquatic invasive species, the New Zealand mudsnail, was detected in Lake Tahoe for the first time. My name is Sarah Matthews. I'm the Aquatic Invasive Species Control Coordinator with Tahoe RCD and Tahoe Resource Conservation District, excuse me for my acronyms. And along with my colleagues at Tahoe RCD and TRPA, I'm a part of the team that is pulling together a rapid response to this situation. Next slide. So to give you a quick overview of what I'll be touching on today, I'm first going to start with a brief introduction to what New Zealand mudsnails are and how they were detected in Lake Tahoe. I'll then give you an update on the survey efforts that have been ongoing to understand the extent of these snails in the lake. And then I'll leave you with some actions you can take to help out. Next slide. So New Zealand mudsnails are a very small species of aquatic snails. They're from New Zealand originally, that's where they're native to, but they were first detected in North America in 1987 in the Snake River in Idaho, and they've since spread to 22 different states, including California and Nevada. In recent years, they've been detected in the lower Truckee River near Reno, and also they've been detected in the lower American River near Sacramento. We don't know, oh, back slide, please. We don't know how they arrived in Lake Tahoe, but we do know that they were in close proximity and that they can very easily spread on boating gear, on paddling gear, angling gear, really anything beach toys that hasn't been cleaned, drained, and dried. And so right now, what we're doing, we're in the information gathering stage, and we're trying to understand how these will have an impact to Lake Tahoe. We do know that in other systems, they've had negative impacts to the environment. So these snails are tiny, but they can reproduce very rapidly. They're also very hardy. And so what that means is that they can outcompete native invertebrates, and that can have negative impacts up the food chain. Next slide now. So these snails were first detected during one of our aquatic invasive plant surveys offshore of the Upper Truckee River. Our contracted dive team, Marine Taxonomic Services, was diving, and the divers noticed a about 20 by 20 foot patch of very dense, unidentified snails that hadn't been seen here before. And so the divers immediately noted that this was unusual and they could be an invasive species. So they took some samples back for analysis, and they immediately alerted Tahoe RCD and TRPA. So we formed an incident team because we suspected that these may be New Zealand mud snails, but we needed to confirm that and make sure that they weren't one of the native snail species that can look very similar. So we sent off the samples to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, to their snail experts, and we also, to be doubly sure, sent them to a DNA lab for analysis. And unfortunately, both of those did come back positive that these were New Zealand mud snails. Next slide. And so one of our top priorities so far has been to understand the extent of the snails. So where are New Zealand mud snails in Lake Tahoe? And so on this map here on the right, you could see the results of 3 of the 4 ongoing or completed survey efforts. And this map shows positive detections. The darker the red symbol is, the more dense the snails were at that location. White symbols mean that the divers went down there, but no snails were detected at that location. What's not shown on this map are the lake-wide monitoring transects. These are about 100 different set transects around the lake that we revisit at regular intervals. And the divers have just completed those surveys this last week, and no snails were found any other place around the lake on those transects other than the transects that were in this map area. So right now the data is showing that this 3-mile stretch between the Tahoe Keys and Ski Run Boulevard may be the extent of the infestation, but survey efforts are still ongoing to further delineate that. Next slide. And so what can you do? These snails are really small. They can easily attach to your clothing or equipment without you realizing it. So we really want to make sure that none of these snails are spread around the lake or to nearby water bodies. The number one thing you could do is to avoid the area that they are known to be right now, avoid recreating in that area, and to make sure that you are being doubly vigilant to clean, drain, and dry any of your equipment, boats, anything that's coming in contact with the water. And you can find more specific instructions to your group, whether you're a motorized boater, a non-motorized boater, or an angler, at TahoeBoatInspections.com. You can scan the QR code or look for the link in the chat. And you can stay tuned for more updates at trpa.gov. That second link is also in the chat. So thank you so much for your time.
All right, great. Thank you to both Sarahs. Appreciate that information. At this point, if you have any questions while any of our presenters are speaking, feel free to put them in the chat. I see Sarah is actually typing an answer to someone right now, but I'll wait a minute to see if any other questions come in on Taylor Tallac or the New Zealand mud snails. As Sarah mentioned, we have the link to more information about the mud snails in the chat. So if you click on that, you can see where to go for more information on that. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come in, so we will move on to the next program area, which is forest health. So we're going to be joined by Milan Yates with the California Tahoe Conservancy, and he's going to be speaking to open space lots and how we are protecting communities from damaging wildfires and restoring ecosystem health and wildlife habitat. Milan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Victoria. Can you hear me okay? Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Like the previous speakers, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Milan Yates. I'm the Community Forestry Program Supervisor here at the Tahoe Conservancy. I'm here to talk, like Victoria said, about what's happening on our open space parcels currently here in the South Shore. So just a little bit of quick background on the California Tahoe Conservancy. We are a state agency, a state of California agency that was enacted in 1985. Really to stem some of the overdevelopment that was happening in the basin. We currently own and manage roughly 4,700 parcels or 6,500 acres on the California side of the basin. To put that in a little bit of context for the South Shore area, we own approximately 800 acres in the South Shore area and roughly 1,200 acres, or excuse me, 2,200 acres in the El Dorado County portion of the South Shore. As a result of our ownership or our acquisitions, most of our properties were acquired in the early 1990s. You can go to the next slide now, Jeff. Thank you. Most of our properties were acquired in the early 1990s, and again, they're really inside the subdivisions. So a lot of our ownership is here inside the subdivisions. This is on the screen. You can see a map of kind of a cutaway. It's a little bit zoomed in of the North Upper Truckee neighborhood. The gray and light colored parcels are privately owned, and then the orange colored parcels are conservancy owned parcels. And this is pretty representative of our ownership throughout the lake. So here in the South Shore, next slide, please. Currently in the South Shore, we have some fuel hazard reduction projects that are active. In that map that I showed, the North Upper Truckee area, we have roughly 165 acre project going on vacant open space parcels in that area. We have an active project here in the Keys and Gardner Mountain neighborhoods of inside the city. And we're also planning a new project for next year in the Al Tahoe and Sierra Tract areas of the city. Again, these projects are all designed really to, reduce wildfire risk and improve wildlife habitat, restore forest health, protect the water quality that's so famous here to Lake Tahoe. Next slide, please. Okay, so as we transition seasons here in the basin, a lot of the land management agencies will be transitioning into our fall prescribed burning. The Conservancy doesn't actually have any fall prescribed burning on the South Shore. We do have a number of acres that we're looking to burn this year, but it's up in the Placer County area, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about that. Next slide, please. But I will spend just a second to let you know that a lot of the other partners here in the South Shore do have prescribed fire, either active or planned. And if you're interested in finding more information on where those are happening, I urge you to visit TahoeLivingWithFire.com. You can see it here on the screen. The link will be sent out later as well, I believe. But this website here is housed, and it has an active interactive map that shows current burn locations and has information on that stuff for pile burn and understory burning. Next slide, please. Okay, so I was asked to kind of keep it short and sweet tonight because there's a lot of presenters. So with that, I'm gonna really turn it over to the next presenter. And if you have any questions for anything that I've said or about the Tahoe Conservancy, I urge you to visit our website at tahoe.ca.gov.
Wow, that was record, Milan. Thank you. So I know we had one question come in, and Melissa, we're responding to that question right now. Chris Carney will be responding to that one. And we will move on to the next section on sustainable recreation and transportation. I know a couple of questions came in about AIS, and if we have more time at the end, we'll be sure to answer those live. And we'll also have some of the panelists be responding to those questions as they come in. So thank you. And we will move on to sustainable rec and transportation, as I mentioned. So as a lot of you know, millions of people visit Lake Tahoe every year, which drives the annual $5 billion economy. And hopefully many of you, like me, regularly enjoy our growing paved trail network to make it safer for cyclists, pedestrians, students, visitors, and everyone to get around town without needing a private vehicle. So we now have 26.4 miles of pedestrian and cyclist pathways in El Dorado County and 48.3 miles in the city of South Lake Tahoe. So we're going to hear from both of these jurisdictions to talk about the 2 additional miles of improvements in El Dorado County and about 2 additional miles in the city coming up right now. So I will pass it to Donaldo.
Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donaldo Palarone. I'm with the County of El Dorado. I'm a project engineer, project manager. The first project I'd like to highlight, one is called the San Bernardino Class 1 Bike Trail Project, currently in construction. This one is a Class 1 shared use path from West San Bernardino Avenue in the North Upper Truckee neighborhood over the Upper Truckee River towards Tahoe Paradise Park and the Myers Elementary School near Apache Avenue. This project will, like I said, connect the North Upper Truckee neighborhood to the area to the east in Myers, and will hopefully reduce the vehicle miles traveled, reduce the reliance on motorized travel, and it's perfect for active transportation users and connections to Myers. As I mentioned, it's currently in construction. We're slowly wrapping up the project and anticipated to end construction in early December. That's pending inclement weather. We did get extensions to continue grading work through next Friday, but work beyond any extensions will be all non-grading work and mostly finish work. Next slide, please. The next project I'd like to highlight is the Pioneer Trail US Highway 50 Intersection Safety Improvement Project. This is the roundabout project located in Myers at the intersection of US Highway 50 at Pioneer Trail. The project aims to convert the signalized T intersection to a modern roundabout. It will aim to improve overall safety by reduction in collision severity and improve environmental benefits, or have environmental benefits, increase the capacity and reduce delay at that intersection, and provide connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists. Currently, we're wrapping up our design phase and coordinating with the various stakeholders, including Caltrans, the State of California Department of Transportation, with an anticipated bid advertisement in a few months in February 2024, and pending favorable bids and award of the contract, will begin construction in May or next summer during the construction season, and will wrap up hopefully in the end of October. Next slide, please. The next project I want to highlight here is the South Tahoe Greenway Upper Truckee River Bridge at Johnson Meadow. This project improves on the Dennis T. Machida Memorial Greenway from Sierra Boulevard at Barber Avenue to the south over the Upper Truckee River towards Barton Memorial Hospital and Winnemucca Avenue, just north of the airport. Currently, the project is in planning and going through the environmental analysis with our consultants, and we have an anticipated adoption of the environmental document in the middle of 2024. Then after that, we'll transition into design and pending construction funding, begin construction, the beginning of the Tahoe construction season in May of 2025. Next slide. The next project, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Dan Kickert.
Thank you, Donaldo. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Kickert. I'm a senior civil engineer and a project manager for El Dorado County within the Tahoe Engineering Group. The project here is the Apache Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project. It's located in Myers on Apache Avenue between US 50 at the current Pat Lowe Bike Trail and bounds the other end at the East San Bernardino Avenue at the Lake Tahoe Environmental Science Myers School. This EIP project is focused on sustainable mobility improvements to provide a safe, walkable, and bikeable roadway. In addition to the mobility improvements that the project is planned for the project, it's also going to include water quality improvements to address drainage issues that are on Apache Avenue. We're currently in the design phase of this project, and similar to Donaldo's had mentioned on the roundabout project, with bid advertisement anticipated for this winter in February of 2024, with construction to start and be completed during next summer's construction season of 2024. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to the city of South Lake Tahoe.
Thanks, Dan. My name is Jason Burke. I'm the Complete Streets Program Manager for the City of South Lake Tahoe, and I'm going to walk through 3 of the projects that we're working on. Next slide, please. The first project I'm going to talk about is the Pioneer Trail Complete Streets project, which is really a phase 2 pedestrian improvement project. The goal here is to provide safe and comfortable pedestrian sidewalks, lighting, transit stops, and a class 2 bike lane to finish the phase 2 section of that project from Larch Avenue to Ski Run Boulevard, where we've previously completed the sidewalks and lighting from Larch up to the highway. This is the continuation to Ski Run Boulevard. And again, the overall goal of this is to connect those neighborhoods to the employment centers so that people are able to safely walk to and from where they live and where they work. So far, we've got the environmental approved. We have the concepts that have gone through a few public meetings. We currently have the 60% conceptual plans, and we're working through the construction level documents. We do have funding secured for the majority of the completion, so we're hoping to have that under construction in 2024 and next year. Next slide, please. Another project that we're working on here is the Bijou Park Class 1 Greenway connector that is connecting the newly created South Tahoe Bikeway in the Al Tahoe area at the community college, that great new path that actually El Dorado County recently completed. And this would be connecting that path to the Bijou Park and to Al Tahoe Boulevard, connecting the Greenway or the Dennis Machida Memorial Greenway to the park, and in a way that minimizes conflicts between disc golf users and other parks so that bikes can safely get to and from the park. We held a community meeting in July. We're working on an online survey to kind of refine the alternatives for that project, and we do have $1 million secured for design, environmental, and construction, so we're hoping to move forward with a project within that budget. Next slide, please. Another project that we're working on is what we call phase 1C of the Greenway. And this is the other side, the eastern side. We're looking, the entire project is looking to connect basically from the Sierra Track neighborhood all the way to Van Sickle State Park. As Donaldo previously mentioned, El Dorado County is working on the other side with that Upper Truckee River Bridge connection. But we are looking over on the other side to extend from Herbert Avenue to at least Ski Run Boulevard, where that recently completed trail terminates right now at Herbert. Right now, we've started some initial planning and design work. We're working with the California Tahoe Conservancy, or what we call CTC, to continue funding for the concept plans and necessary environmental review for that idea. At this time, we don't have funding for final design or construction, but as we move through that process of getting a more shovel-ready project, it should be more competitive. And that concludes my slide, so I'll turn it back over to you, Victoria.
Great. Thank you all. I'm looking forward to a lot of those projects to be able to not bike on the road as much. So thank you for that. Let's see here. Just to give a heads up, I haven't seen any questions pop up about any of the projects that Donaldo, Dan, or Jason just described, but if you do have any, feel free to throw those in the Q&A. And then both Sarah Muskoff and Sarah Matthews, it looks like there's a couple questions in there for you to answer about Taylor Tallac and the mud snails. So I just want to point that out. If we do have time at the end, like I said, we'll go back and answer some of these questions live, but just wanted to put a little plug in there. And for now, we will move on to science, stewardship, and accountability. So everyone here has a role to play in stewarding or taking care of Lake Tahoe, and science really helps to lead the way to guide policy decisions. So next up, we have Marilee and Laura from the League to Save Lake Tahoe, who will be speaking to how innovative technology is being deployed to protect the lake against aquatic invasive species, and how you can get involved with citizen science and volunteer projects in Tahoe. So Laura, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Laura Patton, and I'm the Senior Science Policy Analyst at the League to Save Lake Tahoe. I'm joined, as Victoria noted, by my colleague Marilee Movius, who's the Senior Community Engagement Manager. Next slide, please. So, as many of you know, the League to Save Lake Tahoe is also known as Keep Tahoe Blue. So since 1957, the League to Save Lake Tahoe has really worked to protect and restore the environmental health, sustainability, and scenic beauty of the Lake Tahoe Basin. Our mission has never actually changed. We still focus on water quality and its clarity for the preservation of a pristine lake for future generations. We utilize science and also data-driven solutions to keep Tahoe blue. Next slide. I want to talk about a couple of environmental improvement program projects that we're working on and some different technologies that the League has launched in partnership with EcoClean Solutions, TRPA, the Tahoe Keys Marina, and also the City of South Lake Tahoe. We know from this past 4th of July that litter is really an issue on our beaches, as I think many of you can attest to. But it's also important to note that litter is not only above the sand, but actually below it. Plastic is a huge culprit, and actually the majority of the material that our volunteers pick up. So kind of enter this B-Bot that you can see pictured here below on the left, which is our beach cleaning robot. B-Bot actually serves as the last line of defense in the battle against our microplastics problem in Lake Tahoe and can clean up to 4 inches below the sand. So as you can see in the image on the right, our beach cleanings pick up a lot of trash with that B-Bot robot, including, again, a lot of plastics that actually have the ability to turn into microplastics, which we're really concerned about impacting Lake Tahoe's water quality. The League and EcoClean Solutions are executing these B-Bot cleanings and collecting and analyzing data for policy solutions to keep microplastics out of Lake Tahoe's water. Next slide. So in addition to a litter problem, Lake Tahoe also has an aquatic weeds problem. As Sarah Matthews' presentation really demonstrated, with the introduction of a new aquatic invasive mudsnail, it's important now, really more than ever, to focus on the prevention of any aquatic species introduction and the spread. So the Clean Drain Dry machine is a mobile unit that you can see pictured in this slide that cleans, drains, and dries your non-motorized watercraft, like your paddle boards and your kayaks, to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. So in 2023, over 550 paddle boards and kayaks were cleaned with this machine. And in 2024, there'll be at least 2 of these machines, one that will continue to kind of move around to popular kayak and paddleboard launch locations. And one of these machines will also be owned and operated by the Washoe tribe and located at Meeks Bay, which will be really important, again, in combating the spread of aquatic invasive species in Lake Tahoe. Next slide, please. So if you live on the South Shore, you probably know about the Tahoe Keys, which are over 90% infested with aquatic weeds and really present the largest ecological threat to Lake Tahoe's renowned water quality and lake clarity. In 2023, we introduced 2 aquatic weed and actually litter eating aquatic robots to capture those weed fragments and also styrofoam from the marina docks. The 2 robots are called the Pixie Drone and Collector. The Pixie Drone is actually pictured in the 2 images on the slide there. So the robots that we're deploying collect data, and they also collect other information so that we can solve problems with innovative policy solutions. The Pixie Drone operates like an aquatic Roomba, essentially, and it can eat up to 10 gallons of weeds at a time. So technologies like these really provide new services in the Tahoe Keys, in Lake Tahoe's beaches in general. So we're looking at combating pollution by picking up trash with these robots. We're looking at combating aquatic weeds and tackling that issue. And we're really talking about the power of innovative technology for policy solutions. Now I'd like to turn it over to Marilee, our Senior Community Engagement Manager, to really talk about the power of our volunteers.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you to the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency for hosting this webinar tonight. And good evening, everyone. Like Laura mentioned, I'm Marilee Movius, the Senior Community Engagement Manager of the League to Save Lake Tahoe. The League is really proud to partner with agencies and organizations on this webinar and others to provide hands-on solutions to protect Lake Tahoe with volunteers. As Laura mentioned, robots are an essential tool to remove litter and weeds out of the environment. Volunteers are also vital in the protection of the lake. The League acts to keep Tahoe blue by advancing restoration, combating pollution, and tackling invasive species. Tonight, I'd like to focus on how volunteers are essential to prevent the spread of litter and aquatic invasive species and the actions that stop these issues at the source. The League has been hosting signature cleanups for the past 10 years, including the Keep Tahoe Red, White, and Blue Beach Cleanup that's hosted on July 5th. And the photo that you see over on the right shows the impact that these busy holidays can have on the environment. We also host other cleanup events when the snow melts on Earth Day, during the middle of summer on July 5th, and before snowfall on Labor Day, to prevent litter from making its way to the lake. We also founded the Tahoe Blue Crew program in 2019, and this is where an individual or group can adopt a litter hotspot and pledge to clean it at least 3 times a year. This is essential to the community to support land managers that are stretched really thin, to clean up areas that don't have paid staff to clean, and keep eyes on areas all around the lake. We also founded the Eyes on the Lake program in 2013. And this program is awesome. If you like to kayak or paddleboard or walk the shoreline, you can be eyes on the lake and protect while you play. This is a really important program to prevent new infestations of weeds around the lake. Next slide, please. Data is essential so that we know the location of where litter is left behind and where plants can be spreading. So you can see over here on the right, the stats from our cleanups. From 2014 to 2022, we've had over 9,000 volunteers lake-wide remove over 74,000 pounds of litter. And a lot of this is plastics. Cigarette butts is a type of plastic, bags, bottles, caps, straws. These are single-use items that are used one time and discarded, and oftentimes in our environment. These do not biodegrade. They photodegrade to smaller and smaller pieces in the sun and can make their way to become microplastics and can enter our waterways. Microplastics and small pieces of plastics are harmful to the environment, wildlife, and actually our human health. So it's critical that we prevent the use of these and stop it at its source. We also have found from our Eyes on the Lake program, 8 infestations were prevented because of the Eyes on the Lake program. So this is also an essential program. Data is collected through our events and programs, but also through our Citizen Science Tahoe app. You can see the URL here. At any time, you can protect Lake Tahoe by reporting litter or aquatic invasive weeds through this app. And it lets us know in real time where you're seeing an issue. And then we can work with land managers in real time to make sure we take care of this right away. This app is in partnership with the Desert Research Institute and the Tahoe Environmental Research Center. Data is also essential for solutions. This includes where to install cigarette canisters, as you see here, in partnership with the Tahoe Water Suppliers Association. It's also been essential in supporting the passing of the City of South Lake Tahoe's plastic bag ban in 2015, the polystyrene ban in 2018, and newly on the docket is the water bottle ban, which will go into effect on Earth Day of 2024. Next slide, please. So I really encourage you to join us to protect the lake by volunteering at an event with us or another environmental nonprofit. I also encourage you to subscribe to the League's e-newsletter to learn more about the current threats in Lake Tahoe and how you can be part of the solution. I'm now going to hand it back over to V. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marilee and Laura. Let's see, we've had a couple questions come in. We're gonna go back. If you have any questions on any of the topics that were covered tonight, feel free to toss those in the Q&A. You'll also see several of the questions have been answered, so hopefully y'all can see some of those answers in there. The first question, we're actually going to bring on one of the panelists you haven't heard from yet. Chris Killian is the Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Coordinator for the Tahoe Resource Conservation District. And Chris, I think this question might be best for you. He's asking if the zebra and quagga mussels have been successfully kept out of the lake so far, and just what's being done in general to try to keep those species out of Lake Tahoe.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Chris. We can't see
Excellent. As long as that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Yeah, the watercraft inspection program has been operating since 2008 with pretty strict protocols, some of the most strict protocols in the Western United States. And we've had great success with the introduction of the New Zealand mudsnails. Unfortunately, we may never know exactly how or when they were first introduced into the lake. But we've been reviewing our protocols, and we currently require a full decontamination of any vessel that has been in New Zealand mudsnail waters within the last 6 months. The same for quagga and zebra mussels. And so we don't really see any additional aspect that we could improve there. It seems as though that aspect for motorized vessels coming through the inspection stations is quite good. Unfortunately, now Tahoe is on the list of infested water bodies for the New Zealand mudsnail, and they will then be required to undergo the same decontamination protocols upon returning to Lake Tahoe within the last 6 months. And so we've been working really hard on keeping invasive species out. Not only has the program been able to help prevent, the quagga and zebra mussels as listed in the question, but with the focus on additional aquatic invasive species, as well as other kind of contaminants, bilge oil and other things. A lot has been done through that program to help maintain the health of the lake.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so just to clarify again, we currently now have confirmed New Zealand mudsnails in the lake, but we do not have quagga or zebra mussels in the lake. So we are going to continue to work really hard to keep those species out of the lake. Great. And then Donaldo, this next question is going to be for you. There was one that came in that was asking about the Johnson Meadow Bridge. So Jeff, I don't know if you wouldn't mind going back to that slide about Johnson Meadows. For those that are queasy, watch out. We'll be going backwards here. So we're getting a lot of excitement on that project. I'm sure you've heard that before, but wondering if you could add some more details about the funds that are needed versus the current funds, and how that trail will connect to the planned greenway from State Line all the way out to Myers. Yeah,
thanks for that question. See that the question had multiple parts. I'll try to break it down individually. And the first one says, can we get more details about funds needed versus current funds? Yeah, the current funds that we have will allow us to complete the environmental document and design. The only funds that we are lacking right now are the construction funds. Unfortunately, we missed the statewide active transportation program grant application last year by 1 point. They do have another grant application program coming up, and we'll apply for that same one. Realistically, right now, we believe that the project, seeing that it's close to 1.2 miles with a bridge and major structures, we feel that that project could be upwards of between $5 to $6 million. So that's kind of our plan. And then the next question was, also given the Johnson Meadow Bridge, the expansion of the existing bike path to Van Sickle Phase 1C and the various bike paths in Myers, are there discussions about further connecting the city with Myers, specifically via the existing trails and paths east of the airport? That is our ultimate goal, beyond Johnson Meadow, heading south towards Myers. And we know that there are existing user trails east of the river, but for right now, that's a separate project, and we'll look to continue looking at grant opportunities and programming other projects to the south. And our ultimate goal is to get to the roundabout in Myers at Pioneer Trail and US Highway 50 and provide connections into Myers.
Thank you, Donaldo. And thank you everyone for your questions so far. I don't see any open questions in there, so I'll give it another 15 seconds or so if you do have any questions. Otherwise, like I said, we will be sure to send out the slides and the recording to everyone who was able to join us tonight. Well, I'm not seeing anything coming in. So with that, we will give you back 9 minutes of your hour. Thank you everyone for joining and for listening in on what's happening in your community. We all find it very important to be working on these projects and really appreciate you all taking the time to listen in and learn more about them. Anything else from the panelists that you'd like to add? Okay, with that, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will follow up. Take care.